Welcome to the Pathfinder Legacy Podcast, where we help farmers, ranchers, and business owners create a seamless transition plan for the future. From retirement to ownership transfer, we protect what you've built and guide you every step of the way.
Hello all, welcome back to the Pathfinder Legacy Podcast, where we talk farm and business succession without the fluff, the fear, or the family fights. I'm your host, Heidi Olson, where I'll guide you through tough conversations, the transition decisions, and everything in between. We're starting right where most families don't, at the beginning. For today's episode, I'm responding to Mike from Eastern South Dakota. He has a situation with his parents that I thought we could all learn from. Here's just a snippet of Mike's email. I'm 60 years old and have been farming with my dad most of my life. Looking at our books, you can see I've been running the operation, but the truth is, Dad still acts like he's in charge. He's 85 and still wants to manage every decision. He climbs into the combine at harvest, even though I'm the one who's done all the maintenance, paid for most of the repairs, as well as other farm labor. I've invested in this place. I bought grain bins, but he fills them with his own grain, which means I've had to go rent extra bins just to store mine. I've carried the financial load, made improvements, and taken responsibility, but I'm still treated like the hired hand. I run this farm as a business. I have the education and over 40 years experience working and managing it better than it had been done in the past. But how do I get him to actually let go? How do I move from being labeled as a kid helping out to being the manager who makes the decisions? I don't want an inheritance. I don't need a pat on the back. I just need the chance to fully lead without Dad hanging on to control. What advice do you have for a situation like this? All right, there it is, a 60-year-old carrying the load while an 85-year-old dad still holds the wheel. If this sounds all too familiar, you're not alone. Let's break this down into the real issues underneath the story. What's ownership? What's management? Where the money lines got blurred? And why letting go is so hard? Then I'll give you a simple plan to stop this from dragging on for years. I spoke to Mike earlier this week, and this is what I learned from his side. His dad has given the reins to him to do all of the work, get equipment ready for planting or harvest season, farm labor, grow their operation with upgrades of equipment and technology. And here's the hardest part. No matter how much Mike has proven himself or invested in the operation, he's not recognized as the one who's actually managing the operation. It sounds to me like Dad only wanted labor and did not ever plan on retiring. Didn't Dad want Mike to grow their operation and be more successful than he was? Now that he's 85, he can lock in labor with the son, and the son cannot get out of this situation due to his vested interest he's put into the farm. And now that it's time to pass the torch, Dad wants to hang on, afraid he'll lose his identity. I won't be a farmer anymore. I won't know what is happening with the day-to-day business operations on the farm. If I'm no longer in control, I won't be in the know, and I won't have anything else to talk about to my coffee group. Here's some questions I'm going to keep interjecting from time to time as we're talking about today's podcast to go back to you as either the owner or the farming child. First set of questions I have is, if you're the farming child, do you feel like you're carrying the financial management load without the authority to lead when to sell grain, livestock, or when to buy hay or fertilizer? If the prices change after the sale is final, can you both talk about it, or are you held accountable for what you cannot control when you sold that commodity or livestock? If you're the dad or current owners, are you letting go, or are you still holding on to the steering wheel while your kids do all the work? Are you the owner that wants to control until you can no longer live on the farm or until you die? Now let's look at it from Dad's perspective. Why do parents hold on? Because in their mind, it's still their farm. You can't tell me what to do. I built it. I've survived here through the tough years. I've made sacrifices. I've worked through high interest rates, bad weather, and lean markets. And when you've lived the way I have your whole life, you don't know anything different. Wow. Letting go just isn't about the farm. It's about their identity. For Dad, climbing into the combine wasn't just operating equipment. It's holding on to a piece of who he is. He was not ready to quit farming cold turkey. Parents also think their experience trumps education. They may believe the younger generation is smart, but hasn't lived through the same hardships. And deep down, many are afraid the kids will do things differently. We're afraid of change. I don't want to see change. I'm used to and accustomed to what has been happening for the last 40 years. They're also afraid they're going to be forgotten, afraid that if they stop farming, they will not matter anymore. Okay, here's some more questions. I'm going to take a moment and interject. If you're an owner, what's the real reason you haven't stepped back? Is it fear? Is it loss of your identity or loss of control? If you're the current operator or farming kid, have you asked your parents directly what they're afraid of losing if they let go? Here's where the collision happens. The farming child feels like they're carrying the load financially, physically, and emotionally, while still being micromanaged. The owner feels like they're still the protector of the farm, but they don't see how their presence undermines the authority of the next generation. Money and investments get blurred. Who owns the grain bins? Who pays for repairs? Whose grain is being stored in those bins? Who's covering transportation costs or any other inputs? I asked the son, who is doing the bookkeeping for both sides? I found his answers interesting. The son is doing his own books monthly and knows exactly where he sits with his income statement. Dad, on the other hand, has mom doing all the books. She writes the checks and knows what's in their operating accounts. But the two of them together have no cohesiveness of their business books. Dad knows he has grain to sell and mom deposits the checks. Mike told me his mom is not aware of the expenses he has paid and whose grain is being stored in whose bins. Well, this is a point of conversation that we will be suggesting for him. He needs to have a clear conversation. And while this is all happening, resentment grows. It doesn't always show up in shouting matches. Sometimes it shows up in silence. But over the years, silence turns to bitterness. And by the time families face it, they've lost too much time. And sometimes relationships that can't be repaired. All right, here's another set of questions. What investments or contributions have you made that haven't been recognized? Are there blurred lines on your farm, like equipment, grain bins, or finances that need to be clarified? So what do we do with this? How do families stop this cycle before it destroys them? Here are the lessons. Don't wait. These problems don't go away all on their own. The longer you ignore them, the deeper the wounds. Separate ownership from management. Dad may still own the land and the assets, but if the farming child is managing, they need decision-making authority. Acknowledge contributions. If the farming child is paying for repairs, doing the work, or investing in improvements, that needs to be recognized and respected. Dad cannot hang on to grain for years to avoid incurring income, and mom, as the bookkeeper, needs to be kept in the loop. Are there equipment expenses that dad needs to reimburse son for? Mike, as the operating son, needs to make sure he is making his parents, both of them, aware of the outstanding expenses and what % each owner is responsible for. Have the hard conversation. Put it in writing. Spell out when dad is stepping back and when the next generation really gets to take over. Bring in a neutral third party. A farm succession planner can help the family talk through what they can't say to each other. All right, here's another set of questions. Do you have a written plan for when leadership actually changes hands, or are you just winging it and hoping year to year that it will get better? We don't have to talk about it. We'll just sweep it under the rug and it'll take care of itself. Who could you bring in from the outside to help your family have this conversation before it's too late? All right, here's my reply back to Mike with giving him some tips and tricks on what he can do to help his situation. Mike, thank you for your hard facts about your situation. I hear stories like yours more often than you think. A son or daughter carrying the load at 60 years old while dad still holds on to the reins at 85. You're not alone. Here's what I want you to know. You've already proven yourself. You've made investments, you've paid for repairs, you've put in the hours of sweat equity, and you've taken on the management responsibility. That deserves to be acknowledged. The bigger issue here is control that never truly was transferred. Your dad still sees himself as the farmer, even though you've been carrying the business side for years. That's about more than farming. It's about identity and fear of letting go and the belief that his way is still the only way. So here's what you can do. Draw the line between ownership and management. Your dad may still own the land, but you're running the operation. That needs to be clear. Define a decision rights list. Who decides the cropping plan, the marketing plan, and equipment purchases? Document your role. Write down who's responsible for what, including financial investments like bins and repairs and other upgrades. No more blurred lines, and mom has to be kept in the loop. Acknowledge your dad's fears. Sometimes dad needs to hear that letting go doesn't mean being forgotten. It means trusting you as the next generation. Define a new role for your dad. Have him ease into retirement with what his responsibilities will be. You can have him keep up with landlord relations, parts inventory, or transporting workers from field to field during busy times. Bring in a third party, such as a succession planner, to help move the conversation forward without turning it into another fight. A planner will keep it calm and moving in the right direction. Agree in advance on a tiebreaker rule. If no consensus after 2 meetings, the mediator recommendation stands. These are just a few of the ideas that I had for Mike. Now, I know some of you listening are probably thinking, okay, this sounds great and all, but what do we actually talk about in a family meeting? Don't worry, I've got you covered. I put together a guide with these talking points and a meeting template you can use in your own meetings. If you'd like this list to discuss at your business or farm family meetings, you can click on the link in the show notes to go to my website. At the end of the day, you're not asking for inheritance. You're not asking for special treatment. You're asking for the chance to lead without being second-guessed. And that's exactly what families need to talk about before years of resentment pile up. Pretending that 2 generations can run a farm side by side without clear boundaries only creates conflict. You cannot build a lasting legacy if you don't hand over the reins. Keep the conversation going and don't wait another harvest season to address it. Thanks for joining me on the Pathfinder Legacy podcast. If you found today's episode helpful, share it with a friend or a business or farm family. And if you're ready to start the conversation, let's talk. You can connect with me at pathfinderlegacy.com. Until next time, I'll see you between the ditches.
Thanks for listening to the Pathfinder Legacy podcast, where your future is our focus. Be sure to subscribe, follow us on social media, and visit us at pathfinderlegacy.com to start building your transition plan today.